Blog Talk Radio.
Host Ava Muhammad, my co-host Terence Muhammad, our contributor and analyst Dr. Ridgely Muhammad, and we are expecting to have a wonderful program as always on Elevated Places. Tonight we are going to discuss one of the most fundamental steps in the process of separation, and that is our ability to do for self, which begins with the establishment of a viable economy. And there are steps that we must take to come out of the consumer category to the prosumer and into producing for ourselves. And so we're going to have a very special guest on later on in the program, not too far from now. But in the interim, our inimitable co-host, the traveler, Brother Terence Muhammad, who is, I don't know where he is. We never do, and it's up to him to decide whether to share that information or not. But I'm so glad to hear your voice, Brother Terence. That was very concerning for a moment with the Blog Talk Radio server. So inshallah, we will be able to get through this smoothly tonight. Brother Terence, assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, ma'am. You know, one of the things I would just start off with saying, Dr. Ava, you know, it's so much going on in the news that this is not a shock. This is not a shock that at the night that we got some very interesting news to talk about, that Blog Talk would start to act up on this night. So, you know, I'm just smiling, I'm just laughing. I was scrolling on my phone until it got right, because I knew it was going to get right, because we are the winners and we're going to win. So I wasn't even worried about that. But I will start by saying this. You know, we never want to take for granted. We want to never put it on the shelf. We want to never just act like that's old news. I want everybody to pull out and relook at, restudy, reevaluate, reanalyze, redigest the time and what must be done by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Please go back and watch that 51 series of the time and what must be done that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered. Go to YouTube, go to NOI.org, and go back and watch exactly what he said years ago that's happening today. And then once you do that, well, first let me say this. Go and watch the press conference. You can go to NOI.org or go to YouTube and watch the press conference from November the 16th, Watergate Hotel, that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered. I was listening again today, Dr. Ava, and I listen to it every day because the minister is putting out more and more clips, and I just listen, and it's just amazing to hear him speak and to hear the things that are panning out and happening across our country and literally across our world. So I need people to do that. I need, as Brother Fontaine has said, continue to share on social media as much as you can. Follow the minister at Louis Farrakhan on Twitter and Instagram, Minister Louis Farrakhan on Facebook. Go get your updates. Keep following. Keep sharing the message. The people need to know what is going on. I don't even know how to explain.
Just inject something before you move on, because you're
yes, ma'am.
You're speaking on something very critical, and I don't want to overlook the fact that the final warning to the United States government and the final call to black people have been made into a study guide. And so not only should we watch and listen to the message, we need to study the message, because it is a real-life manifestation of the process that we are being taught in self-improvement, the basis for community development. We study the lives of the prophets and messengers of Allah. We study the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but we are witnessing the life experience and work of Minister Louis Farrakhan. And above all, there is a message in that press conference to us where he stated, Black people, you must change the way you think and the way you act, because the time has arrived for you to do better and be better, or suffer the chastisement of God until you submit your will. The message is so powerful that we've been putting words into the form of a glossary, and we are going into our third week of study of just the first 10 paragraphs of this magnificent and monumental message. But we can look back at Noah and Abraham and Jesus and Muhammad and transport all of what they were saying and doing and experiencing right up to today in the final judgment that is taking place right now. So I just wanted to inject that as well. Go to study.noi.org. The speech is posted as well as the transcript. We have the unabridged transcript of the press conference so that you can read, and you also will get the study assignment. But back to you, Brother Terence.
No, thank you, Dr. Ava, because that is critical and that is necessary, and that is just my sentiments, my thoughts, my spirit. So you just really just added on to, more into the fullness of what we're saying. And people got to go watch it and then watch the news to understand what we're talking about. I'm not going to be long tonight on the news. I wrote down a funny thing about the interpreter down in Tampa, how she just walked up in the Tampa police press conference.
Oh, yeah, we talked about it.
Oh, whoa.
Okay, I hear some people in the background. Oh. Yeah, so, okay. So in Tampa, with the interpreter that just kind of busted in that wasn't a real interpreter, that was just...
Go ahead, Brother Terence.
Okay, I didn't know. I heard somebody teaching in the background. But
no, you teach. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So also, we wanted to, we're noticing the things that's going on in the weather with the fire in California. Some of those pictures are just I can't even believe what's going on in California. And just looking at those pictures, so we got to be mindful. And now we're going to the time of snow. And we want to get ready for Savior's Day, Savior's Day, Savior's Day. We want to keep pushing it out there, make everybody get ready for Savior's Day, get your Savior's Day gift, get your Savior's Day registration, and get ready. But before we go into our tonight's call, the last thing I just want to mention and talk about is the when we talk about gangsters on hip-hop and rap music, I don't know if I know any more gangsters than what's going on in the White House right now and in government. They're so gangster with all these people resigning, quitting, getting fired, jumping ship. I mean, what in the world? There is no, there's no, like we know we bankrupt in America, and morally we are just way bankrupt, and we've seen all of the corruption come out. But the thing I just want to close on, Dr. Ava, the most gangster move that I saw yesterday is when that president came out. That president came out and said, now y'all do know that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. For him to just tell folks that's what it is, and that we're going to move our embassy to where we say the capital is. I said, I thought Bush was gangster when he said there was weapons of mass destruction and there was none, and he wouldn't bomb Iraq. I said, that's real gangster. You bomb places. But for somebody to say, I'm going to move my whole embassy and rename your capital and put it right there, and then talking about, and we're going to be the ones in charge of the peacekeeping because we done just switched up the whole game. Now, we're going to have peace because we want to have peace for the Palestinians and Israel. We want to have peace for both of it, but we're going to be gangster first and move our embassy because if you're doing a thing while our embassy there, then we're going to have to hurt you. It was just such a gangster move. I just couldn't believe it. So we know we're having uproars in all of the embassies in Muslim countries now, and people are taken to the streets. There's gunfire over there.
Protests here in Chicago.
Protests here, so that's why, and we have protests all across the country. And then I ain't even dealing with the tax plan, the GOP tax plan, which is crazy. But so it's so much going on that's why when Dr. Ava started talking about the study guide and the minister's press conference and really going into it, if you're not studying that, you won't know and realize what's going on. So we need to get ready, get geared up. We have the final warning to the government and the final call to us. So whether we listen or not, we have been warned and told. Back to you, Dr. Ava.
All right. Well, I'm going to take it right over to the one and only man who's always keeping us grounded. No pun intended. The Minister of Agriculture. But
good one. Good pun. Good pun.
Our contributor and analyst, Brother Dr. Ridgely Muhammad. And thank you, Brother Terence. I love how you laid that out. That was totally gangster. And it just proved what the minister said at the conference. Allah, God.
That's right.
Put that man in that office because he is going beyond what any of us ever could have imagined.
Come on.
It's bringing about the message, Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words. Right. Allah will make you separate. But anyway,
that's right.
And it's better than the reality show.
It really is. That's what's so amazing.
You can't even write this.
You can never make this up. And if you did, you would be thrown out and told your script is too crazy and bizarre, and no one would buy it. So no, we're not gonna film this. But go ahead, Dr. Ridgely.
Well, I mean, first of all, can y'all hear me because I have to switch up between speakerphone and the headpiece.
Oh yes, sir. You're coming through very clear.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It gets tricky. They're playing games, but it's almost just laughing. You just be laughing, and there's nothing to say. Just laugh. I mean, this stuff is incredible. What this president and his boys are doing. But on a more serious note, I went to Seattle this past weekend at the invitation of a Christian minister there. Reverend, I hope I don't get him in trouble, Robert Jeffrey. The reason I say I hope I don't get him in trouble because, he lost some Jewish friends by just inviting me to come and to speak at his Harvest Dinner Festival. And the beautiful thing about it, brother, is that this church, they have had a little farm for 10 years, and they have been selling. It's called Clean Greens. And they've been selling in their community, in the black neighborhood, for 10 years. And this brother has done everything the minister said that a minister should do in his neighborhood. He lives in the neighborhood. The church is right down the street. He's bought up everything around the church to the extent that the white folks burned him out 15 years ago, burned his church down. They wanted him to move so they could buy that property. You know how Mr. Farrakhan said, we dust. And they just had a plan for the expansion of Seattle, and he wouldn't sell. And they are paying people for their homes that cost that 30, 40 years ago cost $15,000, $1 million to $2 million.
Wow!
Give me $1 million. Give you $1 million. I get $2 million. Just get out so they can tear it down and rebuild it. It's real crazy, and he has stood his ground, and for that, they really pushed up on him. But I think he is something for all of our ministers to look at as a Christian or a Muslim as to what a person, a man of God, can do in his neighborhood along the lines of to make your place a a decent place, a clean and decent place to live. I mean, he's really doing that. So I was really grateful to be a part of it. And I had a good conversation with him before I spoke, and I told him tongue-in-cheek, not really tongue-in-cheek, because I was meant it. I said, man, you need to speak. I need to sit in the audience and let you talk because he's really a revolutionary. He just come back from Cuba. He went to Cuba about a month ago, and he's fired up. And I'm saying any of us who claim that we want true independence, we need to go to Cuba and to observe people who really are independent. For instance, I've had a problem here with my wife's vehicle, and Toyota trying to jam. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're going to charge $1,100 to fix a starter. $1,100 to fix a starter. They said, well, we need to get to our own mechanics, but there's equipment you got to have to work on those, and you got to have the computer codes. So you can't work within their system. We have to go to Cuba and learn how they have built their old cars, taken old cars and rebuilt them. Take the old cars and they made parts to keep them going. We need to learn how to do from scratch the way they do, because they, for 51 years, they've been under the sanctions of America. And then Russia failed. That was their major trading partner. But yet they're still going and have the best education, the best health in the world. So if you're serious, so what are we going to do? What does it mean by separation? What does it mean by independence? Go and study Cuba. That's what it means. And if you ain't ready to do that, then I'm sorry. You cannot be playing in this white man's system with him, because let's say we build our own cars. Well, we build our own cars in America without having some territory, then they're going to make a law that your particular car is illegal. It's like they do up in North Carolina. You got to have emission testing in North Carolina. Well, they don't do it out here in Georgia, but they do it in North Carolina. So if you have a vehicle, they can put all type of restrictions and make sure you cannot put that vehicle on their streets, which is our streets, but it's their street. That's how they're going to treat it. So we really have to think in terms of total separation, total control, do it for self, every aspect, food, clothing, shelter, every aspect. And we got people working for the white man doing all of these things in America. Hidden Figures should have gave you the hint. Behind America is always us, the ones who's really doing the work. So just now it's just a matter of us deciding that we're going to do it for ourselves and suffer the consequences. Because we're suffering the consequences of not doing it for ourselves now. We're fat, we're ugly, we're out of doors, we're sick, we're in jail, we're catching hell, we're unhappy, we're divorced. Come on now. What else do we need for somebody to say, look, man, and the preachers know it because they're doing the funerals. I mean, they're just doing 2 funerals a day and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. We're dropping like flies. We're not fighting back. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Walaikum salam. You know, I was blessed to have a conversation with Minister Louis Farrakhan in the last few days, and he was talking about the fact that separation is indeed a process, and it begins with a mental recognition and a mindset.
Right.
The desire, and this is what we are studying in building the will. We have to engage in practices that will build our will.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But one of the things that the will requires is the nourishment that comes from desire. So the question isn't that, do we desire to be free of our tormentors? That's the question that each every one of us have to ask ourselves, because the separation of the two people is going to happen. I don't know the exact moment. Right. And in fact, as he said, it is a process. And it is a process that is actually started. It started quite some time ago. But we're now experiencing we're at the edge of the physical manifestation of that separation. And we have to recognize that the rejected and despised, which is us black people, have been divided among ourselves, and the enemy has worked to divide us. And so one of the tactics that they use is to always provide a certain amount of amenities and comfort to members of the oppressed group. All oppressive governments and entities do that. You know, there's a phrase we have, house Negro, et cetera. This is a very real, that's a real syndrome. It's not fiction.
No.
That people are selected from among us, and then they are used to say to us, if you just get your education and toe the line and do right, you will have all of this too. This is America, where everybody has the opportunity, and it's one of the biggest lies in the history of humanity. And so, you know, as you're saying, Dr. Ridgely, we just have to go within. Nobody's judging anybody. You know, you have to decide, what do you want to do? Because God has already decided He's going to break this marriage up.
That's right. That's right.
And you're going to go with mama or daddy. There's no, can we make a way to stay together? It's not happening. So we're not being given that option, okay? So the only way you can stay with them is to reject God's will and reject His plan. But the question is, what do you want to do? And as you're saying, if we're serious, how can we be serious and we're not studying how it is done? That's right.
That's right.
And I just have a little island nation that has survived more than half a century.
That's right.
Under the foot of this big Goliath, and has still not only survived, but is now starting to flourish. But go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, I appreciate what you're doing, and I hate to break in. But I had to break in before I had a senior moment. You remember we were talking earlier today, and I said that somebody looked like Django, the Uncle Tom and Django, and I couldn't remember the name. And as you were speaking, it came to me. The name is J.L. Chestnut, the lawyer. And the reason I'm saying that is that I was, I did a video called Snake in the Reparations Grass, where I videotaped from the beginning to the end of the Black Farmers lawsuit. I had it on VHS, and I had a friend of mine to put it on DVD. And I didn't get a chance to look at it until I was going on the plane. You got 4 and a half hours of flight to Seattle. So I had a chance to look at it. And, of course, at the beginning of the DVD is J.L. Chestnut lying to the black farmers about how easy it was going to be to get this money and how not to listen to anybody else except them. And his mannerisms plus his haircut and and even the sideburns and his mannerisms, I think that Samuel Jackson used him as the model of that Uncle Tom. So that's who it was. Yeah, it is very deep, and you really understand what happened to the black farmers in that lawsuit. I mean, he even made it as though it was the black lawyers who were ahead of it. And it was this Portuguese Jew, Al Pyrie, that was ahead of it and got them to sell it to the rest of the farmers. And they're going to try to act like it was his, just like in that movie. Oh, my God. It was like Samuel Jackson, they studied J.L. Chestnut. So that's who it was. I'm going to say J.L. Chestnut, the great civil rights lawyer who sold the black farmers out. Oh, well, made some enemies.
Everybody needs to look him up because, sometimes we think these are caricatures or fictitious representations.
Right.
And, generally when you see great acting and great performances, even if the character is fictitious in that story, they're usually just like The Godfather. Vito Corleone was based on a real life mob leader. Okay, and that's what gives you that dimension of reality. So that's powerful. And we have them all over the place, all over the place. But anyway, we have a very special guest with us this evening, and Brother Terence is going to introduce her so we can discuss something very critical to our survival. Brother Terence, I'm turning the mic back over to you.
Yes, ma'am. So, I just want to, it's interesting. I'm actually introducing a friend of mine by the way of her parents in Raleigh, North Carolina. There's a Baba Kambon and Nana Maria. These are two, I would say, pioneers, scholars that forged a community in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Blacknificent. And so much culture has come through those doors. So many scholars have gone through those doors. So many words of empowerment and black activism and black consciousness came from those doors. And in those days when I was going there back and forth, particularly with Pam Africa, Steve Coakley, coming through the Blacknificent, there was this sister in the back as the lecture was over, always had these vegan and vegetable dishes being prepared for us that we always enjoy. And that's the extent of how I knew this sister. But then over the years, being under her parents, or me being under her parents and watching, she came up with her own ability to get back and give into this conscious community, which is a beautiful thing when you see the children of those scholars and elders and you see them coming and walking in that path. Where she's, a professional economist, I would say, that helps and a consultant. And since we're in this season of Up with Jesus, Down with Santa, and dealing with economics, and we know that we have to do, we have to buy black. But really, in these months, it shouldn't be a hard thing for us that are quote-unquote conscious to buy black in these months if we were doing it all year round. So Nataki became the spokesperson for Let's Buy Black 365 Black Economic Empowerment Movement. She became the spokesperson for that movement in 2014, and she actually got a nomination for the Black Power Award that was held in Atlanta this year. But right now, her business, New Business Solutions and Let's Buy Black 365, they're going to actually partner to offer $1 million in consulting services to black-owned businesses so the success that she's achieved can translate to real empowerment in the black community. So I wanted to bring her on to talk about Let's Buy Black 365 and talk about the economic movement that we need in the black community. So welcome to our call, Sister Nataki Kambon.
Welcome, sister. Oh, you know what? Her mic is not open. So it's making it hard for her to be heard.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I said thank you so much for that introduction and for having me. I have followed you for a long time, Sister Muhammad, so very much appreciative of all the work that you do in the community and everyone on this call. You guys are definitely giants in the community.
Oh, thank you so much. And we appreciate you taking time on such a critical topic to come in and share with us, give us some guidance and insight on what we need to do.
Yes.
So with that, Nataki, I guess a couple of points, you can let everyone know about Let's Buy Black 365, and I guess I would ask, before you go into that, could you give a little bit of background of yourself and your parents so people can kind of understand the lineage and the people background you're coming in? Because you're not just an economic money maker. You actually come from, a very, very conscious family. And for those that may not know, Nana Maria, she used to be the president of the Black Psychologists Association. So she's known literally all across the world, and have made trips to Africa many, many times. And her brother is, bilingual, trilingual, quadrilingual in African languages.
Yeah, I don't even know what they call that. I think he speaks like 8 different languages. What is it? Octolingual. But yeah, I could definitely give some of my background. Yeah, my parents. I grew up in a unapologetically Pan-African household. Not really under that label, but just in terms of lifestyle. Labels haven't really driven our lives and our choices, but just really living by example. And my father, Dr. Kambon, is just the consummate warrior. I always tell the story that my parents don't wear wedding rings. When they got married, instead of exchanging rings, they gave each other their African names. And so Kamal is the name that my mother chose for my father, which means quiet warrior. And Mawia is the name that my father chose for my mother, which means the essence of life. And so I just every day wake up really thankful to have them, and just seeing them and the example of Black love and Black family and Black community and entrepreneurship and leadership and scholarship is just really, really inspiring for me. And so, yeah, my father is an educator. He opened up Blacknificent Books with my mother and had and hosted so many of the scholars and giants that we, praise. Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Khalid practically lived at the Cultural Center, it feels like. To have those people come through in my, in my home. And, I was in, high school and college at the time. I didn't really appreciate it for what it was. It was just standard that some of these people were in my house. And now looking back on it, it was like, wow, Baba Shango and, like Steve Coakley, just so many people. And my mother, as you said, was the past president of the National Association of Black Psychologists. In 2000, when she was president, she took 500 Black psychologists and their families to Ghana during the annual conference, and it coincided with next year is coming up on the 20th year anniversary of the Sankofa journey, where she helps persons who really want to connect with that part of ourselves that we didn't realize was missing because of slavery, to really connect in this deeply cultural, spiritual, non-denominational spiritual, just reconnection with Africa. And for the last several years, that has been hosted by her and my brother, who actually moved to Ghana in 2008 and has since become one of the scholars. He's now apparently the go-to person for every issue in Ghana. He's gotten so much attention. And I said, we're 2 years apart, but I always feel like his little sister, because he's always just doing such amazing things. He is the architect of a BB2 Mikasa, which is the African Language Institute. It's the I think it's the largest 100% Black social network. So there's the app and the website for BB2 Mikasa, and it's just really connecting Pan-Africanists, because one of the things we keep saying is we can't keep talking about white supremacy on white social networks. And so being on a BB2 Mikasa, a lot of people are like, how come you're not on Facebook much? It's like, or some of these other things, and it's because I'm even making the shift we need to live what we say, even in terms of not just what we consume in terms of products, but what we consume in terms of social media and news media, et cetera. So, the one other thing I'll say about my brother is he's the one that led the Gandhi Come Down statue issue, which, was prevalent last year, and he was on the BBC and all these places interviewing about that because, India sent this statue of Gandhi and it raised the issue, nobody would ever send a Jewish community a statue of Hitler and say, you should be okay with this on your academic campus. But, you send a statue of Gandhi and looking at the history, he was not about peace and justice and all these things for everybody. He wanted that just for Indians, but he hated black people and called for our extermination. And so, just him being the consummate historian, he has the dates, facts, quotes. I don't even know how he does that. But because of all of the attention that he's gotten in Ghana, through things like that. He was one of the first 34 people who's actually gotten dual citizenship and actually helped usher in the ability for black people from the diaspora to get dual citizenship in Africa because of those kinds of things and the fact that he speaks the language better than some Ghanaians, and in fact, a lot of Ghanaians who had the language kind of bastardized with English. You hear about Spanglish, where there's so much English and Spanish mixed together that some people don't speak real Spanish. The same thing happens in Africa, where we hate ourselves so much that we try and reject the traditional culture and languages to the point that we don't even know it anymore. And so he's actually been teaching native Ghanaians the language and all these different kinds of things. And so the parliament there recognized him, and he was actually installed as a king of a region in Ghana. So I can't even wrap my head around the fact that my brother is a king. It's a little inconceivable. So that's a little bit about my family. So, they're all just amazing people. I don't know. It's hard to talk about what I do in comparison to some of the trails they have blazed. But Let's Buy Black 365 is a Black economic empowerment movement. My background, as you mentioned, Brother Terence, while we had the bookstore and cultural center, I managed a lot of the events and activities, and I also, when I was in college, I actually started a vegan catering company out of my dorm room, and I continued to do the food at the cultural center. And that it was wildly successful. I actually used the seed money to pay for a continuing education business course that UNC Chapel Hill offered because I hadn't majored in business but realized that I needed that foundation. And so with the proceeds from the catering company, I paid for that course and launched my company. And from there, it really just translated into, the company, again, is called New Business Solutions, spelled NU. And the idea behind the company was to help Black-owned businesses launch and scale to capacity and profitability. But what has happened over the last 17 years that I've been in business is that I haven't had any clients who look like me. I said that, but I did 1 month ago get my first Black client, and I've worked with dozens and dozens of companies. And the tragedy is when you I go to a lot of business programs and listen to people talk, and what we hear too often is people say, I'm starting a business, but it's more of a side hustle, and we say these things, but that translates to I'm not actually investing cash in this company. to really get it going, or I'm not doing things the right way. And so what we see happening time and time again is that we have some persons in our community starting businesses, and then people in other communities, and they're surpassing us by hundreds of thousands of dollars, by millions of dollars, two companies that started at the same time, because we don't adopt best practice, and we don't do things like hire business consultants, hire professionals who can, scale a company up very quickly. We tend to think of things as, well, I'm going to struggle for years, and as long as I work hard, I'll be successful, and kind of delude ourselves into thinking that, just working harder, not smarter, can really be, the game changer. And so the partnership that you mentioned, Brother Terence, with New Business Solutions and Let's Buy Black 365 is really about taking those entities that actually want to scale to profitability and helping to surround them with resources. Because the fact is that the state of the Black community, especially from an economic perspective, is dismal right now. And we can't afford to have people say, I'm going to struggle for 5-10 years and hope I'll be successful. We need people who are doing the models like, standard business that I work with is operational and profitable in 2 to 3 to 6 months. And so when you hear a lot of this that, businesses have to wait till 5 years to figure out if they'll be profitable, those are really the businesses that don't bring in the resources to circumvent all of the ambiguity about the future. And so I
think you're breaking up,
put resources around the people who want to be able to do that, because we need to be the number one employers of Black people, as Dr. George Fraser always says. We need to have more systems in place where we have businesses that are operating in best practice so that we can do more to control our communities. And so when you look at it, everything from domestic violence, unemployment, underemployment, child neglect, all of these things have an economic undercurrent. The school systems and the racist school boards and all of these things are a direct result of economic disempowerment. And so if we're really talking about changing all of the problems in the Black community, it starts with economics. And while Let's Buy Black 365 is really a movement about individuals who are coming together, it's not really about businesses. It's really individuals saying, I am choosing where and how I spend my dollars, and I'm choosing to not finance my own oppression by continuing to support people who don't look like me and people who hate me. And I am choosing to spend my dollars with people who look like me so that I can create jobs for other people who look like me, and I can help stabilize my community. And it's about more than, just finding things that are convenient or easier or any of that. It's about really what kind of world am I creating every time I spend a dime anywhere.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So with that, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You even finished? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, with that, what Let's Buy Black 365 has done is just really help individuals. It's about individuals connecting with other like-minded people and identifying where Black-owned businesses are. There's a crowdsourced business directory on Let's Buy Black where anybody can post a business, rate it, review it, so that other people can know, okay, somebody else found a quality-owned Black-owned business. Now I don't have to have the fear, usually the unwarranted fear, of buying Black.
Yes.
95% of my disposable income goes to Black-owned businesses. And when I say that a lot of times, what I hear from people is, yeah, but I've been to one Black-owned business one time 10 years ago, and I had a really bad experience. Let me tell you about it. And, you mentioned earlier in the call, Dr. Muhammad, that we really have to change our minds. And
yes,
what I say is, you had one or maybe a couple of bad experiences with Black-owned businesses, but I just told you that 95% of my income goes to quality Black-owned businesses. So if we're really changing our minds, we're not going to keep harping on the bad experiences with a couple of businesses out there. We'll say, well, who are you using, and how do I get that resource, and how do I duplicate that success in my own life? So we'll be looking more at duplicating successes rather than living in the past in failures. And so this movement is really about making that mental shift and making that even behavioral shift to not financing our own oppression. And so, in line with this whole boycott from Black Friday through the end of the year, I know at the beginning of last year, actually following the State of the Black World Conference, where I know I saw you last year, Brother Terence, we came out with an economic withdrawal plan. And originally it was going to be a boycott, but the individuals who met, there were about 60 or 70 or so people who met, and it dwindled down to about 50 people. But the 50 core persons who were working on that project said, actually, I'm sick of boycotting. What boycotting has done is tell people, unfortunately, sometimes it comes off as a temper tantrum, where I'm going to do this until I get my way, and then I'll go back to business as usual. And what that has told other communities is, we can poison you, we can kill you, we can destroy you, we can harass you, we can discriminate against you, we can do all these things, and you'll boycott, and then we acquiesce, and we lose a couple of bucks in the meantime, but we ultimately recoup all the profits because we know you're going to come back. And what the group collectively decided is there are companies that have done atrocious, irreparable damage to the Black community, and we don't want to temporarily boycott them. We want to permanently withdraw our financial support of these companies, and again, permanently. And so people are like, well, how long is it lasting? Permanently. How long?
Forever.
When is it going to? Permanently. and when we're talking about empowerment, it needs to be that decisive. And so there are companies on there like McDonald's that has, destroyed rainforests in Black communities across the globe. They have put poisons in communities. They're, the environmental issues. We know about the health ramifications and all these different kinds of things. Similar with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. All of these companies are invested in the prison industrial complex. So they are financing systems that create poverty so that they can ultimately create situations where people have to commit crimes in order to get by, or use drugs in order to even just mentally sustain themselves. And then they get sucked into this prison industrial complex where they can keep, where white people can keep thriving off of free labor through what the so-called new Jim Crow. So we're not talking about, well, let's boycott for now, and if they throw a couple jobs our way, or if they do an apology or any of this, no. These companies need to be permanently out of our out of our pockets, out of our wallets, and out of our communities. And so for those who are interested in seeing that list, it's actually not a comprehensive list. These were just the ones that we said that we as a group identified as the most egregious. But there are others, and we encourage other people to, do your due diligence, because in this technological day and age, there's no excuse for saying, well, I didn't know. I've given the example before. I was standing in a grocery store. I travel a lot for Let's Buy Black 365, and because I'm vegan, I finding things to eat is always interesting in some cities. And I was in a grocery store, and I was going to buy some hummus, and I was standing there, and I'm like, wow, I've seen this brand at like the airport and all these things. I'm like, how does this company have this level of distribution after just a couple of years? So I looked up the brand and saw the company name, and so I was like, well, let me look up who the parent company is. And it turns out the parent company is Pepsi. Well, I just said I don't support Pepsi under any circumstances. So, and somebody was like, wow, you did that in the grocery store? I'm like, what am I going to do when I get home after I've given them my money? Yeah, I do it in the grocery store. That's why we have smartphones. You can look up anything.
Yes.
And so,
right.
For some people it's like, well, that's a lot of work. Well, I would prefer that, $5 not go to enslaving people who look like me, not go to putting toxins in my community that are going to cause these environmental racism issues, not going to finance the people who finance the politicians who allow the police to come in our community and shoot our people in the head and the chest and the face and all these other kinds of things, and then get away with it scot-free because the judges who are elected by the same people who are financed by our dollars that we spend when we think, well, it's just a couple of dollars here and there. So if you're interested in the list, hopefully, I know people know when they tune into your show to always have a pen and paper handy. So I'll give you the website. If you want to see that list, it's www.lets, as in let us do it together, let's buy, B-U-Y, black 365. Those are the digits, 365, and then 365 days a year. So again, it's letsbuyblack365.com/economic withdrawal. And there's a list you can download there. The first couple on the list: McDonald's, Wendy's, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, Verizon, American Airlines, Avis Budget, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. The list goes on from there. Walmart, Target, and Kmart are on there. So people are like, well, where else can I go? Well, it's about making choices, and some of the same arguments for patronizing some of these companies. We had some pushback from people about McDonald's because they were like, well, there are a lot of black-owned McDonald's out there. We don't want to hurt the black entrepreneurs who own McDonald's franchises, but some of the same arguments they're using are the same arguments that were used about slavery, where they said, well, not everybody is mistreated, and some people are going to lose their livelihood, and how will they survive, and how will they make it? It'll negatively impact some of the people, but we're talking about the salvation of all of our people, and we're talking about making sure that those of us who choose to ensure that our people are not being exploited and exterminated the way that we have been are also going to make the choices to make personal shifts. And so, putting a black face on racism, putting a black face on exploitation, putting a black face on all of these things is not an excuse to let it go.
Here.
I don't want to. I'm pausing because I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm not talking too much, or I want to make sure you get in there if you have questions. But this is really the core of Let's Buy Black 365. I also want to give people the number. We've got a couple of things coming up. We actually have a TV show coming out. Just really highlighting the best in Black excellence. And highlighting some of these businesses that we're talking about, and really not so much the businesses, but we the whole movement is really about us as Black individuals, and how do we find resources, information, products, just things that make our daily lives better, because, you know, this system of racism and white supremacy makes it really hard. And so just having an outlet where you can find things to make your life better, where you can find, you know, fun resources or educational resources or just all these different kinds of things. We've been filming since February of last year, and my co-host, his name is Khalid Saber. He is a Maryland barred attorney who is also a documentary filmmaker, and he's also an activist. And so the show is really about the intersection of like professionalism and activism and lifestyle and all of these different kinds of things in a way that it's, you know, really kind of fun and engaging. So, you know, we've interviewed people who are, you know, doing amazing things in terms of just, wow, there's so many of us, you know, there's an entertainment section of the show. So there are all these amazing people who are, I guess, spanning or intersecting entertainment and activism. And so, you know, talking about like revolutionary hip hop and all of these different kinds of things. So Terence, I know that's in your wheelhouse. And, you know, we've had chefs on the show making, you know, really great meals and dishes. There are elders who come on the show and share some wisdom, because most of us are younger, and you know, having that elder presence in our lives is really helpful, and just, you know, really cool gadgets and things just to make life, you know, a little bit more interesting. And so, you know, that's coming out in the next month, and we're having a launch party. Also mentioned the business program where people will be able to apply to get access to some of that $1 million of consulting to scale their businesses. You know, to qualify that, it's not 100% free. And there's a reason for that. I get approached all the time by people who are like, oh, I have a great idea. I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I have a great idea. And there are three things that make an entrepreneur an entrepreneur. It's one, the vision. And we have, a lot of times in our community, we have no problem with the vision. It's two, the financial investment to make the vision happen. And three, it's the ability to either have or access the resources that can make the finances and the idea happen. And so if you just have the idea but you don't have the resources, or you don't have, you know, all these other things, you're not yet an entrepreneur. And so, you know, it's not like a banking situation where you have to have 30% to get the loan, but you do have to show that you're investing in your business first. Because if you're not actually willing to make the investment, then you're not yet an entrepreneur. And we are only interested in financing entrepreneurs who want to grow and scale businesses. And a little bit beyond that, it's not just Black faces on businesses. We want people who are also committed to helping the community. And so, you know, there's a whole concept of social entrepreneurship. And social entrepreneurship is, you know, what you see for companies that, you know, they do whatever it is they do, but they also have give back plans, or maybe they have internships, or they have, you know, money that goes to a sister, you know, a school somewhere that doesn't have resources. And so, you know, when we talk about, you know, growing multi-million-dollar businesses, it's so that we can take care of ourselves. You know, the food, clothing, shelter, you can't do that if you're always broke.
Come on now.
And always scraping by and always doing the side hustle. And we really need to get out of the side hustle mentality. And, you know, I was talking to a sister the other week, and she was like, yeah, well, I've got multiple streams of income, so I'm doing okay right now. But all of her multiple streams of income are, I think she's Ubering, and she's doing, everything is reliant on her physical labor. And that's not where the idea was really about. The idea about multiple streams of income is really about passive income. So you working 5 jobs is just you working 5 jobs. You could do that. It doesn't change anything from you working 1 job for that same rate versus 5 jobs for the same rate. What we're talking about is you may be working 1 job, but then you also have revenue from something else that's not a side hustle, but that is a steady flow of income that doesn't come from your daily labor or your daily effort, and putting those kinds of systems in place. And so, in the future, we are going to make more mechanisms available to people who want to do that. But right now, we're looking at people who have set aside some funds. We're talking about giving people, $50,000 to $100,000 worth of resources. But that might be you spending $5,000 to $10,000 to get access to that. So, it's definitely not 30%. But if you're trying to scale to $1 million business and you don't have $5,000 set aside, you're not ready. If you're trying to scale to a multi-million-dollar business and you don't have $10,000 set aside, you are not ready. And that doesn't mean you stop there and give up, but then you need to figure out how you get ready. And what tools you need to put in place, because I know I gave you my bio, Terence. I've scaled businesses to the multi-million-dollar range who started with $5,000 and $10,000 or $25,000. But it has to start with something, and it can't just be, well, I'm hoping to get an investor because I know my idea will work. That's not, investors want to see that you have some skin in the game. And if you are only coming with the idea, that's how all companies work. Somebody has an idea, and then they hire people with the skills to do it. So if they were going to do that, they could just hire somebody else to do it. They don't actually need you. And so, it's really, we really need to start thinking about business differently. And, I say unfortunately, there's so many people out there who talk about, everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, and we really need to get real and get serious. I disagree with that. I don't think that everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. I don't think everybody to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be willing to do what it takes, and not in an unscrupulous way. There are things that I do not do in my business. I don't work with anybody who's starting a company in the adult entertainment industry, or I don't work with oil companies or pharmaceutical companies. So it doesn't mean being immoral. What it means is making sure things get done, being accountable. There's the concept that if you can't be a great employee, you probably can't be a great entrepreneur, because it's not always about, the work ethic. I'll tell a quick story. I got a job in high school at the mall, and my parents came to see me, and I was like, oh, I'll be right with you. They were just coming to visit. And I'm running around the store folding clothes and doing all this kind of stuff, and the manager was like, what did you all do with her? Because she works here like she owns the store,
Wow.
And I'm in high school, folding jeans. But work ethic is work ethic. And if you have the tendency to do the least, or want to get a bonus just for doing your job, you're not ready for entrepreneurship. So we kind of need this perpetuating the idea that we need everybody to be entrepreneurs, because what we really need are some businesses, institutions, stores, venues. We need more technology and manufacturing and all these things, but we also need Black people who are talented, educated, skilled to work in the businesses just as hard as we work for other people who don't ever give back to our communities.
That's right.
And I tend to have more respect for those people who work in someone else's business, especially within the Black community, and grow those businesses into legacy businesses, than someone who just says, well, I'm going to start it just because I want my name on the door.
Right.
Ooh, that's cool. Good God Almighty, Dr. David. Man, I know Akbar dropped a lot. I'm still stuck on your brother being a king. I'm still stuck on your brother being a king.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that was I didn't go to Ghana this. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Right ahead. I do want to caution you. I know people want to ask you some questions. So go right ahead.
We only got like 25 more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's real quick. I didn't go to Ghana this year on the Sankofa journey, and again, for those who want to go to Ghana, it's an amazing experience. And next year, with the 20th anniversary, and with my brother now being a citizen of Ghana, and with him being in this leadership position as a king of a region. They have a democratic system, so there's the president of Ghana. Of course, everybody knows the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, and they have the presidencies. But they also, even the presidencies and the local government work with the kingship line, and a lot of the local decisions are made through through those kinds of those ways. But I didn't go this year because I had already committed to another speaking engagement, and I didn't realize that it overlapped. So I was really excited. I was speaking at a town hall meeting on a panel about economics, but the day that happened was the day that my brother was becoming a king. So I was like, well, this kind of fails in comparison. But he only found out, I think 2 weeks before it happened. So there wasn't a lot of notice before it happened. But, yeah, it's an amazing story. So, yeah.
Dr. Ava?
Oh, yes, sir. Real quick, before we go to the phone, so we can let a couple people ask Sister Nataki some questions. But this is so beautiful, the ideas and the seeds, how they're planted and nourished by Allah and grow. And now that we are in the season of the fullness of time, everything is coming together. And, it's amazing. In Fall of America, there's an excerpt from it in the current final call, and you just have to be all but overcome by the predictive power of the teachings, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And one of the things he writes in Fall of America, which was reprinted from this book, came out in 1973, and even what was in that book were from lectures and teachings that preceded that. Going back to the 1940s, but he talked about America. He said America ladens the poor with heavy sentences, long prison terms, heartlessness, and lack of compassion for the black man of America. The white man lies in wait around the black man's homes and prowls the streets at night and wait for an excuse to wreak his ruthlessness on his poor prey, the black man. If the black man raises a hand to protect and defend himself, he is shot dead and unable to defend himself against false charges. So here we are with all the exposure now through electronic devices of what's been going on since we've encountered them, the killing of our people. And then on the economic side, this beast keeps our people in sorrow and unhappiness by depriving them of equal opportunities. The black man's wages are calculated by white wicked accountants, preventing the so-called Negro from saving by skyrocketing the prices of the necessities of life. And just listening to Sister Nataki and this beautiful teaching and insightfulness and passion, and then to be engaged in actually working on what we're talking about, the permanent withdrawal of our resources from that which is keeping our people suppressed. So, I mean, this is, I have to thank Brother Terence for bringing you on, for finding you for us like a treasure trove. You hit it out the park, Brother Terence, 2 weeks in a row with our guests.
But I think the one thing I just wanted to bring, out, Dr. Ava, is just the product. When she, ran through the history of her parents and then seeing the product. But one of the things about even her parents is the core of people that was around her, the village that she had around her. And so to come up, as she said, people was in her home, it wasn't no big deal. That was just the norm. So that was a enormity of consciousness. Yeah, that was a enormity of consciousness that grew. So as she even talking about the business, I'm not dealing with this. In other words, we're not accepting, this is not going to enter into this business. So if you have that mindset that you're not ready, this is only for those that are serious. And we got to understand that's how other people do business. They don't do the nickels and dimes. They're like, well, this is what you got to put. This is your investment into your own business. And even looking at the connectivity of certain things, it's like, oh, that's Pepsi's the mother company, and all of the other things that are connected. And I think when we start looking at business, we got to look at all of that. But the first thing that we know is the mindset, and we have to change our mind about how we see business. But I think
exactly what the minister is saying. Change the way you think and change the way you act, and that's spiritually, morally, financially, in every way of life. And to stop in the store to research the company you're giving your money to, and to say you're not even if it's 3 cents, you're not getting it. And that's how other people function. And that's what I said last week on the show. Don't go out and buy things during this season thinking, well, I'm going to go on Walmart.com or whatever and get some toys because I'm only spending $100. Well, how do you think they got billions of dollars from us?
Exactly.
$1 at a time, 25 cents at a time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said pool resources, and I love that. We got to get you for Savings Day because I love this breakdown that you're making between entrepreneurship, and really a lot of our people say I'm in business for myself, and they're really self-employed. You're self-employed because as long as you're saying, as long as you have to provide the blood, sweat, and tears, you're self-employed. Now that's a start, but that's only going to go so far because you're wearing yourself out. We need people among us to go the distance. So those who are desirous, everybody doesn't want to own a business. They want a job, or they want a career, or they want to have a livelihood, but they should be working for, as you're saying, people that look like us and people that don't hate us, who we're giving the most valuable thing there is not money, it's time. Because, white people print money. But when we give years, 20, 30, 40 years of our lives, to someone else who can discard us on a whim and do it all the time. But this is awesome.
The time and the ideas and everything.
Exactly. And let's not even get started on how not only our sweat and blood, but as I think Dr. Rizzi reminded us, just the film that exposed all of the black women who were working at NASA. And, it essentially was a black woman that put the white men on the moon, and beneath and behind just about every invention, whether it's the automobile, the electric light. Oh, and that was amazing what you brought us about Gandhi, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that myself.
Wow.
I mean, that's got to be made known to a broader segment of our population. But we've got people that, and of course we have our regular callers and others, but I know they want to talk to you. Sister Ula is who is a person that believes in business.
Right. Was there a caller coming on?
Yeah, she's coming on.
Okay.
Sister Ula?
Yeah, we're getting the little.
Okay.
Sister Ula, are you there? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. All right, Sister Ula.
Uh-uh.
Okay, we'll come back. Let's see. Sister Darcel? You know, I think this may be a technical problem. Yes, I think I'm having I'm so sorry. Well, we can go ahead and continue our dialogue. Let me see what I can do.
Sister Nataki, can you give out your website again? And it's LETS, L-E-T-S, right? By
yes, like
Black
let's do it
Media.
Together. So
Yeah.
this is not. This is an
Black.
individual effort in terms of what we're doing, but we also talk about doing things in a collective. But it starts with us as an individual. But it's Let's Buy Black365.com, and then the link that I shared in terms of the economic withdrawal was just letsbuyblack365.com/economic withdrawal. For those who are interested in getting more information, where there are a couple of press releases and announcements about the TV show and things coming out. If you want to get a notification about those, you can text your name, email address to this phone number. So the phone number is, and again, you can't call this number, but you can text your name and email address to 505. Hold on, let me make sure I'm saying. Yeah, okay. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. 505 area code 652-2365. You text your name and email address, and also say that you heard it on this show, because we also have a program where if persons are getting involved, there's some income that goes back to some of the sources of how people heard about the movement, so that we can do what we're saying in terms of helping to finance those who are putting out positive Black media, who are putting out good business and services and products and services, and who are, creating resources for our people. So, again, that number one last time, it's 505-652-2365. And if you are interested, if you're a business owner or someone who wants to go into business, one of the things I didn't mention is that some of the persons who are taking advantage of this opportunity are working full-time jobs. When we're talking about scaling businesses to profitability, it does take a little bit of a mind shift, because sometimes people are like, well, I'm so busy right now, I wouldn't have time to participate in something like that. But again, best practice and the way that other people do it, you don't necessarily have to participate. When there are countless amount of times where I've opened, launched, and scaled a company while the owner was out of the country, or while they were working another 9-to-5 job, but they wanted to transition into this and have it be operational. So it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily take your time and effort, because, we're not trying to surround you with a business education, which may take a long time. Most people, when you look at other communities, they don't spend years trying to educate themselves on business. They, again, surround themselves with the people who have those skills, and then move on from there. But if you are interested in that, you can you can text that same number, but text with your name, email address, and put Scale My Business. Again, Scale My Business, and you text your name and email address to 505-652-2365. Again, that's 505-652-2365. There is an application process and a qualifier interview, and the companies that are going through that process we're taking through, and we're actually going to highlight the businesses that have gone through that next summer at the Power Networking Conference with Dr. George Frazier. And then at the end of next year, we're going to do something special for those businesses, because we also want to look at how many jobs they've created, how many resources they've created, what they've been able to do in their community, because these are the kinds of models that we're talking about when we're talking about Black economic empowerment in a real and tangible way.
Yeah, I just got a text from our program director, Sister Rona, and she's not able either. She's lost the internet connection. Sister Nataki, we've had problems all evening. It's a blessing that we're all on, but we had trouble coming on at the outset of the show. And see, this goes back to the need, even in this arena. And of course, we've developed within the Nation of Islam the 9 ministries that are essential to nation building. And one of those is science and technology. We have a cadre of young engineers and scientists who are developing that knowledge, because sooner or later we're going to have to do this ourselves. Because again, the children of our slave masters, they're pulling they're not paying for using the airwaves. Okay, they're sending signals out, and we have to not be afraid and act as though we can't do that. Anything that they're doing, we were doing it trillions of years before they were thought of. So we just have to. This is just a sign of reaching that point where we have to be free of this sort of thing.
I would just like for the sister to give the greetings to your father and mother from Dr. Ridgely. I'm one of the people who have been through there, and they have sold my books in their store, and just tell them that I am so proud of the work that they have done in producing you and your brother, and I will be using your services. So I need to get out of a box. So thank you so much, and we will be in contact.
Okay, fantastic. And the farming and the land and the resources, again, being vegan, understanding the connection to our food and our food sources, and even, some of these concepts that we're talking about, people talk about if your diet is such that you can't even process some of the concepts, then it's harder to make some of these shifts. So, being in control of our food supply is paramount.
That's right.
So very much appreciate and admire and am inspired by the work that you do.
And Dr. Ava, I want to just raise, I really want to take that point a little farther, because what she just said is it's amazing when you hear the teachings that our fundamental foundational teaching, it transcends, because with everybody, if you don't control your diet, you ain't going to be able to control your thinking. When your body is off, system is off, your thinking is off. If we don't have the right thinking, then we don't have the right, we talk about doing for self or loving self. Part of loving self is feeding yourself the best kinds of food, mentally, spiritually, and physically. But if we don't control what we're listening to, or we don't control what we see, and we don't control what we eat, then we're not controlling the concepts and ideas that we think originated from us, but we are actually producing concepts that are actually manufactured by the things that we see, the things we real. Because when we think about terrorism, in some community they think of Muslims because what's been out there in the the reality
That's
of what
right.
we're seeing. And we're artificial people in our makeup because we're using artificial food. That's why we got to have artificial medicine to deal with artificial effects of that. So that's why when we talk about this show, it's about separation. We have to separate to get our mind right, to grow our own food, to do all that. So Dr. Ridgely always been telling me back in the day, land is the base, agriculture is the basis for all culture, and that's our economic base. And that's why the minister has been pushing us to buy land, because land is real estate. Land is the basis of economics because it's real, and also land is what we use to feed ourselves to be able to think the way that we need to do. So I'm just kind of seeing how all this is just tied together. So when she said that, our book is How to Eat to Live. And when we start to eat to live, we can do a lot more prospering. But sometimes we just take what we got for granted and don't utilize it. But it just sounds so good, you know, when somebody else says what we already, in a sense, know. We have to, you know, have the proper diet.
Right.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it just confirms the divine origin of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because it's complete. The body of knowledge is complete, because looking at it on this end of it in 2017, how do you free a people if you don't teach them the essentials of life? We can't do it with just ideology. You know, what other leader brought a diet and said, you know, in the 1930s, stop eating pork. Okay, you know, put a book out with capital letters, no meat is good for you. Okay, and taught that, you know, the best food for you is food that grows from the planet that you're natural to.
That's right. That's right.
That's the best place, and to get your food is from the ground, from where you live. And we know that animals, you can't get animals to eat some of the stuff we eat. They'll go hungry first. They reject. You're not going to see an animal eat Mickey D's.
And the ones that have. Oh, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
No, I apologize. I was just going to say the ones that have are the ones that you see in the vet's offices that have been domesticated, which is what has happened to us. We've been domesticated.
Same thing. That's right.
And they're getting, you know, now you have dogs dying of cancer and diabetes and heart disease and all these things that were absolutely unheard of at one point for a dog. But, you know, these dogs are consuming the same garbage that humans are consuming, so they're getting the same diseases.
Well, you know, I want to go back to something that Minister Ava just said about that. You know, we can't live off ideology. The ideology should lead you to the next steps, and in particular, the ideology that we've been given. Just like one part, Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. But do we apply mathematics to every aspect of our life? Do we actually do the research, the analysis, and put the pen with the numbers to determine the decisions that we're going to make? And when we develop in policy, are we actually getting all the information necessary so that we can do it right, make the right policy? And in terms of our business, are we being led by emotionalism, or are we being led by actual facts? We've been given the ideology, but in terms of implementation, something comes in between the 100% truth and implementation of that when it comes to our emotional states, so that we forget certain principles when we're pushed up on by those who we think have power, and then we relinquish our right to, in fact, use our mathematical Islam. So I thank the sister so much, because as she was talking, it was getting to my core of, okay, Dr. Ridgely, you got a PhD in agricultural economics, and this sister here is doing that which you should have been doing. Therefore, you need to step back a minute and go check her out, because you got off the trail somehow in terms of being able to be successful economically, monetarily. So, and it's just my fault. I can't blame anybody else but me. But I'm going to try to get myself back on track and actually start using my mathematical Islam and put myself in heaven at once. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Yeah. Well, you don't want to beat yourself up either.
I was just gonna. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But
just be thankful.
Yeah, and I know we almost at the hour, Dr. Ava. One of the things I just want to add is that the point, some of the principles that she was talking about, and Dr. Richards said, beyond rhetoric. We're not into emotion. That's why our teacher says, rise above emotions into the thinking of God. And God is a calculator. God is a doer. He's not emotional about nothing. He just says be and it is. So meaning that how do we calculate the things that we do? And like sometimes we'll say our goal to have people in the mosque, we wanted 60 new people in the mosque, but we got 2. Oh, that's great. At least we got those 2. No, you failed. And you got to say you failed. The calculation was 60. You didn't get 60. So what happened? What was wrong? That's nice that you got 2, but that wasn't the goal. So you're not successful. Right. And really, mathematically, look at our success, look at our problems, and analyze it without the emotions to propel. And that's why one of the things we know, white people don't have no emotions. So I'm just saying this in the sense that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad studied the white man because he makes no excuses for his mistakes. He's just like, okay, that blew up. Okay, that blew up. Wow, how did that blow up? Let's blow that up. Okay, let's try that again. And they keep doing it.
And they even call it a post-mortem when they do it.
Yeah.
They call it a post-mortem.
That's right. That's right.
And just keep going. So I'm saying for us, we have to figure that out and be in the sense that, I like the shop Brother Aaron has at Curious in Chicago. It's a nice restaurant. It's a beautiful restaurant, and it has a nice inside. And it's not one of those, okay, this is a nice restaurant that I'm going to shop at because it's black, but you really don't like it. No, it's an actual nice business. And I think that's what we got to, in a sense, what she's saying is raising our standard and not accepting less.
Right. And if I can even add to what you just said in terms of quantifying, for everybody I work with, one of the things, there's a lot of self-delusion that happens, and you were just giving an example of the self-delusion. In one sense, you don't want to beat yourself up, but you also don't want to go to the extreme of deluding yourself by saying, oh, well, those 2 people are all that needed to be here. That doesn't help any. That's a delusion. I always say that the way you should be able to quantify success, and especially for people who want to say, well, it's not about the money, it's about helping people, or it's not about the money, I just enjoy doing it. You should be able to quantify how much you have done through the dollars. So if it's not about the money, it's about helping people. I should be able to see the dollars that reflect how many people you've helped.
That's right.
You're exactly
and if
right.
the numbers aren't supporting it, then you could be helping more people, but it ends up being a downward spiral.
Well,
to your point, Master Fard Muhammad, who came among us, whose birth we're celebrating in February, the first thing he said to black people is money. The promise, if you follow these teachings and learn knowledge of God and self, the very first promise was money. And I think that gets lost somewhere. Money, money, luxury, good homes, and friendship in all walk of life. And to follow a mindset, a slave religion of a poverty vow, where, black people have been made to equate poverty with righteousness.
Right.
And I think that's very important what Nataki is saying, that if you're successful, you have to quantify, well, yes, money is paper. It is. It doesn't have any intrinsic value. However, we are in the Western Caucasian's world. And in his world, money is a medium of exchange, and it symbolizes the degree of leverage that you have in the society. It's not the ultimate value. The ultimate value is land, it's food, it's all those things. But the medium of exchange required to obtain those things is the dollar. And
right.
and so I think that's so important.
Exactly.
What you're saying. That's why you got to be a Savior's Day, I'm telling you, because we get caught up in that. What you just said, I'm loving about. See, this whole thing, well, only 2 people came, and it was Allah's will, it was God's will, or thank you, Jesus, or whatever our belief system is, then we're projecting a deficiency onto the Creator. See, because we're supposed to be able to execute our will. And what that does, like I think you said, delusional, it prevents you from undergoing that review process, self-examination, self-analysis,
right.
and self-correction. Because, see, if you don't admit that we fell short
right.
of the goal, then you're not going to review why. Now, if you think if Beyonce puts a concert on at an arena or a stadium and it's half empty, you don't think they're not going to say, oh, y'all didn't come to see. And that's another thing we do. We also blame others.
Right.
Well, didn't nobody come? They don't have the right spirit. No, you got to do a self-examination and see where did we miss this. United Airlines, Delta Airlines, whatever, even with their big monopoly, if you don't have every seat on that plane filled, somebody's gonna meet on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And say, what happened? Okay, we wait until our business closes before we look at the sign. We don't look at the sign.
Mm-hmm.
We just keep going until, and I just think what you have given us this evening is just the beginning. But you're just a blessing. That's all I can say. But we are out of time. We got to have you back. And we've got to get you in front of a whole lot of people. So
beautiful, beautiful. And offline, I want to
you.
connect you with some Black resources. So these technology issues you're talking about, there are Black live streaming resources that are actually better than Blog Talk. I don't mind saying on Blog Talk, like Black Talk Radio, like Time for an Awakening. I want to connect you with those resources, so we can continue these conversations about Black empowerment on Black Network.
Well,
okay,
thank you, beloved, and thank you, Brother Terence, Dr. Ridgely, Sister Rona, Brother Ruben down under in Australia, and everybody that came. I am so sorry, callers, but we just got through. You heard what Sister just said. We got to have our own. So may Allah God bless us all with love and the light of understanding. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.